This is Inside M&A with Dave Cantin. Conversations for the industry. On today's show, Jim Fitzpatrick and Dave Cantin sit down with Ken Ganley, the president of Ken Ganley Automotive Group, at the company's headquarters in Cleveland, Ohio. They discuss the state of the automotive industry, recent M&A activity, his new Stellantis facility, the current market challenges for EVs, and what it takes to build a great company culture.
Hey everybody, we're on location here in Ohio at the Ken Ganley Auto Group. We're at their corporate headquarters, and we're joined by Ken Ganley himself, who's the president and chief executive officer of the group. We're also joined by Dave Cantin, who is the president and CEO of the Dave Cantin Group. So gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to join us on the show.
Thanks for coming.
Sure. So let's start with you if we can, Ken, since this is your home here, right? Tell us a little bit about the organization for those people that are watching that might not be as familiar with the group as we are.
Sure. We started in 1968. My dad was a car dealer, and his first dealership was an American Motors store.
Wow.
Grew that quickly, had 2 AMC stores, and sold them to become an Oldsmobile dealer.
Okay. So how many rooftops today? How many employees?
We have 54 rooftops.
Okay.
As of last count, about 3,300 employees in 4 states.
Wow. That's something. See, when you work with dealers all over North America, what's business like right now?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a time of more predictability, getting back to the core. Regardless if you're publicly or privately held dealer, large or small.
Sure.
It's you're working a little bit harder now than ever before, just to get back to where business was.
Right.
The positive news is the industry is still growing. Top line revenue is still moving up, and we're still seeing dealers grow in a way of being able to sell more cars and top line increase.
Sure.
But you're working harder.
Ken, have you found that to be the case, that this is still pretty brisk out there?
Business is good. It's better today than pre-COVID. Of course, COVID numbers were crazy,
right.
And I don't know that anybody's doing what they did there. So we're certainly down from 2021, 22. But pre-COVID, we're still up, even with the interest rate environment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that COVID taught us a lot of good lessons. And we've been able to take a lot of those and continue on today.
Sure. Talk to us about what you're seeing in the used car market.
Used cars has been very strong for us. We have been focusing more and more on trying to drive down our average per unit cost. We found that our stores that do that are far more successful when they have, a 15,000 and under. Primarily their inventory.
Sure.
It's a little tougher with the luxury brands to be able to do that. And but business, used car business has been good. I read this morning, I think JD Power said average grosses are off 20%.
Okay.
But we're still doing well with it.
Dave, what do you see out there in used cars? Obviously, we're shortage of the cars that were out on leases that so many dealers counted on. But through COVID, leasing dropped substantially. So now you don't have those to call on.
Sure. Look, with used cars, it comes down to being disciplined as well.
Yeah.
You have to be able to know when it's time to move the vehicle, know when it's time to manage your inventory.
Yeah.
I think some of the biggest problems dealers always have is they say, well, that's a great car. We don't want to get rid of it. The cost keeps going up on the vehicle. Or is it at day 90? They're like, well, they're at 60. Right?
That's right.
So discipline is a key component of being a used car game. You really have to understand your inventory. You have to understand what your dealership sells. What's the demographic? What's the area of expertise of what car should be on your lot?
Right.
And if you have the right inventory, used cars, you're always going to do fantastic. As long as you're disciplined.
With the average age of cars now on the road, 12.6 years. Talk to us a little bit about what that means and what impact that has in your fixed ops business. It must be going great.
Fixed ops has been growing substantially. And, with the average term with loans today, people are holding on to their cars longer and longer.
Yeah.
They're putting more money into their cars. And of course, new cars, there's not a ton of incentives out there.
Yeah.
And so the cost of new cars has risen to a point where we're just seeing people putting more money into that 8, 9, 10-year-old car. Even if it's got 150, 200,000 miles on it, I was just in our Toyota store, and somebody had a 230,000-mile 4Runner, and it was running great, and they were putting more money into it to keep it.
In terms of, and we can drill down on this a little bit because you just touched on it, but the average price of a new car being almost $50,000. Affordability is a huge factor, right? No matter where you are in the industry. Is that one of the elements that might keep you up at night? Where are we going in the industry with a $50,000 average new car?
Yeah, that's certainly concerning. Interest rates as well. When you combine the price of the car and rates, and you look at leasing today, in Northern Ohio, where we do a lot of leasing. And so when the payments are dramatically higher, we're bringing back a customer after 3 years who had a lease at $450, and now that payment is $650. It's tough.
Yeah.
But again, even whether it's a conventional finance or a lease, the cost of the car and interest rates have been making things difficult.
That's right.
Look, just to answer even on what Ken just said, if you look at last week's WAR report that we put out, right, interest rates are a huge concern.
It is.
Right?
It is.
And it's hard to explain to a consumer, first of all, hey, you're getting the same car for your payments, $200 more a month.
Yeah.
They don't understand that. They think the dealer's making the money.
Sure.
They think, but it's not, right? It's higher interest rates. It's different lease factors that are lowering the residuals values of the vehicles. And it's a tough place to be. And that's just another thing added to your point of COVID, right? PPP, CCA Global, all the things that have been happening.
Sure.
Rising interest rates that are allowing dealers to say, I've been in this for a long time. And there's really no succession plan.
Sure.
And I did really well. And if I'm going to retire, I'm going to retire during this cycle that we're in right now, so I can leverage and utilize some of my COVID earnings to help my evaluation to exit, because who knows where the next 5 to 7 years is going to be. And if you kind of look in the future to where we are today, it's not going to be what it was the last cycle.
Yeah.
So yes, we're getting a lot of phone calls. Business is very busy with dealers that even if they weren't considering retiring 4 years ago, but they're considering retiring in the next 4 to 5 years, there's no better time.
Since we touched there and we went there about CDK, you're a CDK dealer, right?
We are.
You are. Talk to us about that. What went through your mind when you got that phone call? Hey, boss, all of our systems are down and we can't sell or finance or service a car right now.
It was a shock. And we hoped when it first happened, well, maybe it'll be back up in a day or two.
Yeah.
And we all found out that wasn't the case. It taught us a lot of good lessons.
Sure.
You can't prepare for that.
No, you can't.
Nobody can. It certainly taught us to, should something like that happen again, maybe we'll be a little better prepared than we were at this point in time. Right. But it was a shock, and it sort of brought the auto industry to its knees for 10 days.
Yeah, it did. I'm sure you fielded a lot of phone calls during that time.
Most of our advisory work in that 2-week gap was really just helping dealers, helping our clients, big or small, right, work through. Dealers needed to try to figure out that resilient dealer that we saw during COVID, right, where they could immediately go from a shutdown, right, standstill to reopen. Well, they experienced that twice in 4 years, right, between COVID, not being an essential business, then becoming an essential business. And then CDK shutting it down, and then them thinking really quick, well, how do I reopen, right? How do I service cars? How do I sell cars? How do I use payroll? All the things that matter to operating our day-to-day. Ken, you mentioned to me earlier, managing contracts and trades. All of the critical elements of running a car dealership that we kind of don't think about when business is good and there are crises happening.
Through COVID, it seems as though everybody said, hey, this can be done, this process can be done online, including the financing. And a lot of people got excited about digital retailing. So, okay, this accelerated digital retailing by maybe 9 or 10 years. But then after COVID kind of went through, it seemed people wanted to come back in the dealership. Where do you think that stands? Do you think that could be the future of our industry, where people will do more of sales process and finance in the comfort of their home and just use the dealership as kind of affirmation and delivery?
I think there's always going to be a certain percentage of people who would prefer to do that. But the one thing you got to remember about our business is that it's an emotional business. It's when you come in and you're making that second biggest purchase in your life, and driving the car and getting that new car smell and looking at the colors on the lot.
Right.
There's nothing online that can replace that, and it never will.
Right.
I think most people get excited about coming in to look at new cars. So while I think we can always get better at digital retailing, I still feel that there is always going to be a place for brick and mortar and for consumers to come in and have a great experience and make a connection with the dealer.
One of the ways that people are now driving cars is they're plugging them in at home. Here we are in Ohio. Your customers, are they coming in saying, "Oh, we're buying EV"?
The short and sweet answer to that question is no, not right now. The last I checked, and I want to say it was May of 24, EV sales were 6.8% of all new cars sold. I think it depends right now on geography. In Cleveland, we don't have the infrastructure. So, that's I'm sure that's very different in Los Angeles, where EVs are selling far more brisk than here. But what we see on the front lines in all the stores is that the EVs are not selling.
A couple of years ago, Ford came out and said, "Hey, if we want to sell our EVs, you got to make an investment."
I wrote those checks.
You wrote those checks? Yeah. Is there any way you get a refund?
It's the first thing I thought of.
You went on the
back
back carriage, right? Those checks.
Yeah.
That's right. And then obviously you're a Toyota dealer, right? And it seems as though Toyota got it right.
If you go back a number of years, I remember being at the Toyota National Dealer meeting, and they made an announcement that, they said, we are not going to go all in because we just don't think the market is there. And I think there was a standing ovation in a 30,000 person arena.
Sure.
They did it right. They got it right. Hybrids dominate. We sell every Toyota hybrid, of course, we can get our hands on, not to mention every Toyota in general.
Sure.
But they did it right. And it's a shame that everyone else didn't do it the way they did.
And I think that also accentuates the fact that the OEMs, and you don't have to send me the letters OEMs, but the OEMs do live in kind of this protected ivory tower, right? Of these executives that say, this is the way it shall be. And they are usually not looking at the same numbers a dealer is down in the trenches, right? That says, wait a minute, they think they know better to what's going to run and make your dealership profitable than you do, right? And it's crazy. Have you found it to be the case?
I mean, it's the unfortunate circumstance,
right,
where they almost have like the better, where they make the final decision. And it's, look, I think the greatest part is having the advisory boards of dealers that sit with the OEMs to really fill them in on what's important. And the great OEMs listen, and they take that advice and they put it to work, and they put in regardless of marketing or inventory for certain geographic locations. They do listen, right? Getting back to EV, I think the greatest issue we have is the expectation that was initially set, right? When EV first kind of came out and they said, well, in 2035, we're not going to be selling gasoline vehicles anymore in certain states. It's going to be strictly EV. The whole world knew we couldn't do that.
Yeah.
It was almost impossible. But they raised the bar. The OEMs raised the bar so high that successfully there was no way to achieve and meet those expectations.
Yeah.
So where do I think? I think the EV industry is still, and it's still increasing, right, year over year, right? And I think, to your point, right, depending upon where you are, the infrastructure is a big deal.
Yeah.
And I think we'll start to see that increase, year over year throughout the next few decades, and that number will increase. But I think the hybrid market, right, the hybrid plug-in and hybrid EV is the way that we're going to see the future.
Sure. That will bridge it, right?
100%.
We'll get there, just not at the rate that. And many of the people that I talk to in the industry say, it is the OEM's fault, but they're being pressured by the government. The government is driving this, right? And have you found that to be the case?
All of it, without a doubt.
Yeah.
We all know as dealers, we know that the manufacturers are under incredible pressure from the current administration. We'll see how November plays out. Nobody knows. But it's got to be hard for a manufacturer when you're being told either sell this many or we're going to penalize you in some form. They have a gamble, right? Do we build these? Do we not build them?
Right.
So it's certainly not easy for them.
Yeah.
And it's I think political wise, the government probably ought to stay out of it. It's going to be better off.
It's extremely costly to prepare yourself, right? I mean, November is another example of what we were just speaking about before, things that unfortunately you can't always prepare for. And who knows what's going to happen come the election of what we're going to see come the next cycle, especially the next 3 years.
That's right. That's right. There's a number of nameplates out there that Scout being one of them, and a number of others that are coming into the U.S. Or that are out there being sold directly to consumers. Does that bother you as a new car franchise dealer that maybe they're playing with different set of rules than you?
Sure, it's always concerning. I think we have strong state level, government, that is always going to be, on the side of the franchise dealer. And I go back to what we talked about earlier. I think the consumer wants to have a relationship with a dealer. You want it when something goes wrong with your car, you want to have that familiar face, that friendly person in the service department who comes, you come in and they take care of you. So I think it's, of course, as a dealer, I think it's a mistake, direct to consumer. I'm sure a lot of people might disagree with me, but fortunately, we're pretty well protected in most states.
Yeah. You ever hear, does a dealer ever call you and say, hey, this is very unnerving. I don't think I want to be around, if in the event consumer or OEMs are jumping in.
Our business is to advise you on dealers, right? And to have a seat at their table when they're having discussions just like this one. I don't care how great or easy it is to buy cars online direct to consumer. You want to walk into their service department, see a familiar face that you've seen before, see on TV, know that somebody's there just a phone call away. The ones that buy cars direct and then they run into an issue, where are you going? You're going right back to Ken Ganley Automotive Group for him to fix it.
That's right.
And that's the shame of it.
That's right. That's right. We're seeing some Asian manufacturers coming into the U.S. Vinjats being one of them. What's your take on that?
It's intriguing. I will always remember something my dad used to tell me when in the 60s, and he had his American Motor store. He said, guys from Honda and Toyota used to walk out my lot, and I would tell them, you get in your car and you get the hell out of here. One of the worst mistakes he ever made, right? So I'm sure there's going to be success with some of these brands.
Sure.
I don't know, how willing I am to put up a building and, invest heavily. There's a lot of them. And I think VinFast is probably going to be very successful at some point in time.
Sure.
I don't know that in our group, I don't know that we're ready for it just yet.
Right. Speaking of new locations, you just launched a 70,000 square foot Stellantis store, right?
We did. Yeah.
There's a lot of dealers that say, wow, Ken's very courageous right now. They got investment. Talk to us about that.
I always feel that every brand is going to have its ups and downs.
Yeah.
And I feel strongly, even though there may be some struggles right now with Stellantis, I firmly believe that we have great brands, and we made a huge investment. We relocated a store. So great location, great facility. We've only been open for maybe 2 weeks. We're already starting to see a big uptick. We went from 8 bays in the service department to 40. And so I firmly believe there are better days ahead for Stellantis.
Switching gears a little bit, let's talk about this. We saw a lot of M&A activity. We still see a lot of M&A activity, and I think you're uniquely qualified to answer this question. But talk to us about the market as it stands today. Is it still as brisk as it was a year ago, 24 months ago? Where does that stand?
It's a great question. The market's changed, but it hasn't slowed down.
Okay.
If anything, it's picked up. Where it was a heavily seller's market because there was no, every time something became available, it was less, oh, look at that acquisition, and more of it's an opportunity.
Yeah.
Dealers that were selling throughout the last few years were probably not considering to sell for the next 10 to 20 years. But because of everything that happened in historic profits and crazy evaluations, they said, how do I not? I might have to work the next 15 years to earn what I'm going to earn if I exit today.
That's right.
And it made sense. But those became opportunities where you might never have the ability to purchase that manufacturer, right? That logo to add into your automotive portfolio ever again in your entire career. So it was so important. Now we're starting to see more of a normalized M&A activity,
Okay.
where it's true dealers that are looking to grow their business and have their strategic approach of looking at a wall like this, saying, okay, where do we need another Toyota store?
Right.
The best part about that is you come in, you sit with a company like Dave Cantin Group and you utilize our artificial intelligence like Jump IQ,
Yeah.
and we can pinpoint and help you strategically pick out your next acquisition.
Yeah.
So it's become more of a buyer's market, that the buyers are now looking for what's the best opportunity for them. How do we grow our platforms? What brands do we need? Where do we have a big bench that we know we have people that are ready to excel and move on to that next role and position?
Yeah.
And where can we grow our company? And it's less about just jumping on that initial opportunity and more about strategically growing your business. And that's really where we focus on.
Having said that, you've made a few acquisitions, right? Talk to us about those.
We were very busy during the COVID years, and we contributed to some of those record high prices. We were definitely involved in many of those opportunities, right? It's all worked out very well for us. And while the prices were high, we were real active with going after and looking for high value stores that we knew for a long time were going to perform well for us. We continue to be active, and we're working on a number of deals right now, and we're going to continue to grow. We do everything organically. We don't have private equity. We've chosen not to go down that path, and we don't have outside investors. So we are very much a family business, myself, my wife, and the boys, and we're going to keep moving forward and keep growing.
That's great. That's great. Is it safe to say that we'll see more acquisitions here the next year from Ganley?
We will, yes. We expect to have a number of acquisitions that'll close.
Because as you know, some of the hotter markets in the country are maybe Florida or Texas or the Sun Belt, or like you guys just have got this incredible presence here in Ohio.
There are a number of things we look at when we're going into potentially making a deal. And it could be a tuck-in that's local.
Okay.
For instance, we recently bought a smaller Volkswagen store, but that was our third Volkswagen store here in Cleveland, and it helped us, kind of cover the market.
Yeah.
And then we've purchased a huge Kia store in Florida on the West Coast, in Newport Richey.
Yeah.
We've gone to West Virginia, Pennsylvania. We look at geography, of course. Is it in the right place? Is it the right brand, at that moment of time? Probably most importantly, does it have great people, or do we have to bring some of our resources to the table?
Right.
And every deal's different. Right. No two are the same.
Do you find that to be the case that people, as at the top of that concern that dealers have? Because if they acquire a store, is it going to be just another headache when you've got 100 employees that then you have to turn over or they leave or whatever? That could be a real issue.
People are always your greatest asset. You need great people. And the hardest thing to find is people, right? Especially today, right? So when you're looking to acquire a business, it's really important, especially if it's outside of your geographic location, your footprint is, that you have the right people in the business and that you're able to spend time and interview with them and speak to them to see what resources you might need to plug in. So people is right up there at the top of the food chain as far as when you're looking to acquire an acquisition.
What stores do you get called the most on? Is it Toyota?
There's never enough Toyotas.
Right.
Okay. It's a long-term asset, right? It's an asset that you're not looking to trade. You're looking to acquire, to grow your platform, and to grow your business. The OE, the manufacturer, is a great partner. They support you. They're there by your side. So you're getting so much more than brick and mortar to sell vehicles. And great vehicles, you're also getting a great partner. And when you have a great partner, you want to grow with that partner. So I don't think there's a single Toyota dealer that we've ever represented that said, we don't want another Toyota. So it's kind of,
they're not allowed to have
framework agreements are there, right? But beside the point, Toyota is still a top tier one brand. Ken, if you don't mind me asking, how are you evaluating an acquisition differently today than just a few years back?
Sure. So today we are looking at current profits and moving forward. There is no more looking back into COVID. We all know that.
Sure, white flag up on that.
As much as sellers would like to look back, I think buyers, I think brokers, everybody knows it's a forward-looking deal from now on. And we look at today's profits, and then we say, okay, at 25, 6, 7, 8, do we feel like we could be around similar?
Sustain and grow the business.
Is mixing the cultures. You buy a store that's got 100 employees, right? And to bring them into the Ken Ganley culture, which I know is a big thing with your organizations, why you're so successful. How do you mix the two? I know it's a whole other show, right? But if you can give me kind of the high points.
Yeah, we haven't had a lot of trouble with that. We have a great executive team here. Our HR team does a wonderful job. I like to think that we check a lot of the boxes when we're coming into an acquisition. I'd like to think that if you're a team member at a store and we're coming in, that things are only going to get better for you.
Right.
And that's the way we try to look at it.
Right. And of course, those new stores give the today's GSM the opportunity to be achieved by one of the stores. So are you growing your own constantly?
We almost strictly grow from within.
Okay.
I can't say that there aren't examples where we haven't hired from the outside, but we have found that our best operators, our best managers have come from within.
Okay.
We have a program in the company we call MIT, Managers in Training. Every general manager has to have a candidate from their store that comes to this office, and we train 2 days a week. And it has created, we like to call it the bench. It's created a great bench for us.
That's right. And they know, those people on the bench know, I'm going to get my shot at this race one day, right?
Yeah. And when they do, everyone at the store level sees it.
Yeah.
They see the success that person had, and then they want to do the same thing.
And I know I'm putting him on the spot here while he sits here, but you've done an acquisition or two with Dave Cantin.
We have.
Me, please. How did it go? Tell us about your experience.
Great. I've worked with one of Dave's guys, Drew Pecan, a number of times. I talk to Dave all the time on different things. They've been wonderful to deal with. Whether you're on the sell side or the buy side, you want somebody who makes it easy. Let's make the process easy. And it can be, deals can be from easy to very complicated and very, whether it's real estate or whatever it may be that's involved. And Dave's team has done a wonderful job, making things simple and getting to the finish line and getting to the closing table.
Yeah, for sure. And I've spoken to a number of people that you've done deals with and closings with successfully. And they said you might have called them on a deal 2 years ago. And you've stayed in touch with them, and all of a sudden you get the right deal for them, and they go, I'm in, I'll take it. And because of that relationship.
That's the way it works, right? It's not about selling an acquisition,
right?
Or thinking that that's the best acquisition for them. But when you spend time with your client and you really get to know them, you get to really start helping them by advising them better strategic acquisitions that fit for their company, their people, and the longevity of the business.
Sure. For the dealers that are watching that have maybe one or two stores, is the future going to get increasingly more difficult for those mom and pop organizations when they're up against the Ganley 50 plus dealerships? Is it going to be tough for them?
I think we're seeing it right now.
Okay.
It's happening today.
Yeah.
Where it's not that it's getting more tough because they're smaller. It's getting more tough because they have to work so much harder.
Yeah.
It's getting tougher because it's less of the competitive approach. And it's more along the lines that they need to be optimal to operate their business, to still maintain a certain level of profitability with where inflation is at the cost of doing business.
Yeah.
The cost today to operate is so much more than where it was. And it's going to keep increasing, which means you need to keep operating your business in every area to maximize profitability and still keeping a really happy customer and great people.
As we close out the session, I appreciate all the time that you've both been giving me today. Talk to me about the future. I mean, and I know you're a crystal ball, but here we are in the middle, now in the second half of 2024. What does the balance of the year look like for you as you forecast out?
I think the year is going to finish strong. We've taken the first 6 months of this year, and we've done a lot of internal projects, new construction, renovations, relocating stores. And I think now that we're almost towards the end of that, it's going to play out well for us the rest of the year. I think we're managing our inventories every day. We get a little bit better at that. We're trying to avoid floor plan interest from becoming too big of a deal for us. But I expect a good, strong finish.
Yeah. Is that what you're finding?
Dealers are excited again.
Yeah.
They're moving through the last 12 to 24 months of when will we understand we're back to operating normal? Well, I think everyone gets it. This is where we are.
Yeah.
Right? Now it comes down to the point of really understanding, okay, what do we do from here to keep moving? But I think the back half of 24, to your point, is going to be really busy. All the signs and signals are there. And once rates start to come down, it's going to get busier.
Is it a buyer's market or a seller's market?
Yeah, I think I answered that before. It's definitely a buyer's market.
Okay.
Okay, I think buyers definitely have the ability today to be a little bit more careful in choosing their acquisitions. Where I would say 2-3 years ago, if something came available, it's an opportunity. They're just going to buy it.
Yeah.
Right. They're not going to spend so much time with the due diligence or really planning the acquisition. It's still a great time to exit. You still have all the benefits of really taking advantage of all that money you made during the anomaly years. Right. I mean, everyone has to factor that into your business. Right. You can't really look at what you've done the last 12 months. Look at what you've done the last 48 months and then factor that into the future. And you take what you've made since March or call it June of 2020 to today.
Yeah.
And you say, how many more years am I going to have to make it work to make this again? It's not going to be the 4 years that you're calculating. It's going to be 8 to 12 years.
Right.
So there are many reasons to exit if it's within that time where you're saying, well, maybe I'm going to exit soon, right? Also the uncertainty. Who knows what's going to happen in the next 4 to 6 years?
Yeah.
Right. The cycle that we're in right now, it's a little untelling, but business is good.
Yep.
If you love selling cars and you love this industry and you have a succession plan, you're not going anywhere.
Ken Ganley and Dave Cantin, thank you both for spending so much time with us here at CBT News. We very much appreciate it. Love to do a follow-up with you to see how things are moving along.
You got it.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks so much.
Thanks for watching Inside M&A with Dave Cantin. Conversations for the industry. Exclusively on the CBT Automotive Network. The Dave Cantin Group is the nation's leading advisory company in the automotive industry. To contact Dave Cantin, go to davecantingroup.com.